So I like to play the game Out of the Park Baseball, and the latest version of that game, Out of the Park Baseball 26, has just been released. When I play this game, I like to use a player projection system that I've built. And in this video, what I'm going to do is run you through that system, and then I'll show you how I use it in the game. And then if you want to use it also, then I've made it available in the description of this video to download, and there'll be instructions towards the end of this video on how to use it. You can see the players here, and they're ranked by plate appearances here, with Ian Happ 684 the most, and so on and so on. If I now look here, this is the projection system for hitters, and you can see the plate appearances are here, and again, this is the players from the Chicago Cubs. And there are projections for each player. So if you read across for Ian Happ, who's at the top here, he's 31 years old, he plays for the Chicago Cubs, he's not in the minor leagues. And then we've got a best of 3.9. That's one of a range of wins above replacement projections, which is over here on the right-hand side. You can see for each position from catcher through to designated hitter, there is a projection for Ian Happ. So it says, for example, if he was to be a shortstop and you put him out there for 650 plate appearances as a shortstop, he would get a wins above replacement of minus 1.8 because he doesn't have the defensive skills to be a shortstop. But if you put him as a left fielder, he'll come up with 3.9 wins above replacement is the projection. And because that's the best of all the positions, over here it says left fielder. If you work your way down the players, you'll see, for example, Dansby Swanson, a shortstop, and so on. Should be recognizable. There's a column called field. This is a column that reads the bars in the game and works out if a player has a clear fielding position. Happ doesn't actually. His bars are not great for defensive ratings. But if you look further down, for example, again, Nico Horner's got good bars to be a second baseman, for example. Come back to Ian Happ, he bats switch. His actual historic home runs as a major leaguer per season have been 25 or per 650 plate appearances. The projection now starts here. He has a home run projection of 21. He has an on-base percentage projection of 385. And he has an OPS plus projection of 116. Going back in game to see what actually happened in this season, that 116 projection for OPS plus turned into an actual OPS plus of 125. It's a projection. It's never going to be perfect. But just to flag that the reason why I point out OPS plus is it's quite a close approximation to WRC plus, or weighted runs created adjusted for park factors. So I'm trying to get a WRC plus projection really, but because that's quite difficult, I come up with something which is a close approximation, which is OPS plus. If you then go across here on this projection, you can see it goes on to talk about best P, HRP, OBP, PP. P means potential and is simply running the same logic again, which I'll come on to talk about what that logic is in a minute, but through the player's potential ratings and not their current ratings. So for Happ, the best P and the best are the same because he's a player who has fully realised his potential. If we just go down here and look at Pete Crow-Armstrong, we're going to see a slightly different story. Here we are in game, and you can see Pete Crow-Armstrong's overall rating is 55, but his potential is 70, reflecting the fact that each of his hitting ratings have got a little bit further to go. And if he hits all of these, he's going to become a better hitter than he is now. In the most recent season of the game, he hit with an OPS plus of 102 to league average. 100 is league average, just a little bit over. If we go back into the projection system now, we'll see his projection. His actual was 102, but the projection was 104 for the most recent season. That's based off his current ratings. But it does think that if he hits his potential ratings, that 104 might go to, say, 113. And consistent with that, his wins above replacement projection would go from here 3.7 to more like 5.0. And that's, again, position specific. And in his case, as a centre fielder, one of the most difficult positions to find a good player for in the game. The projection system does exactly the same thing for pitchers. Here it splits out starting pitchers and relief pitchers. It determines a pitcher as a starting pitcher if they've got 3 pitchers. If they've only got 2, it says they're a reliever. If I just click here, for example, you'll get projections for the players as starters and relievers. And these are wins above replacement projections. Doing the same for the whole league then, you get this. One thing I've done in the code is I've restricted this to only give me the ground ball pitchers in the game. So it's not absolutely all the pitchers here in the league. It's just all the ground ball pitchers in the league that have got stamina more than 40 and 3 pitches, so they're starters, for example. What I'm going to do in the rest of this video, and I'm going to use timestamps so that you can work through it to the sections that are interesting, is I'm going to go through how this works in more detail with an example. I'm going to run through the Rule 5 draft quickly so you can see how I use it. The second thing I'm going to do is just dwell on how the projections are calculated so you can see where the numbers come from. And then the third thing is how to set it up. So if you want to use this in your own save, how to go about doing that. All right, so how do we actually use it? And in-game, I've navigated to the Rule 5 draft. And the Rule 5 draft, for people who are less familiar with this game and with baseball, and there might be people watching this that have watched my videos on Football Manager where I developed a scoring system that's not a million miles different to this. The Rule 5 draft is something that happens every year in Major League Baseball, which just prevents teams from hoarding too many players. If they've got more than 40 players in particular, there's only so many you can protect and keep on your roster. And so there's a few players potentially going spare. And so if you're eagle-eyed and you watch this closely, you can maybe find a player or two. And that's what we're going to try to do now using the system that I've just described, the projection system. So what we'll do is we'll just go to all the players. Okay, so that says there's 2,455 players, which is too many really to spend time looking at closely individually. So we'll use the system to run through and figure out which players are good. First thing I'll do is I'll just get the names of all the players like this. What I'll do is I'll put that into here. So there's the 2,455 players. I'm going to save that in a file called flagged.txt. So that is all of the players, the names of the players I want flagged so the code can look for them. This then is the code, and I'm just going to run it. So again, later on in this video, I'll go through the exact nuts and bolts of how I've done this. But basically what this code is now doing is reading some data that's come out of the game, that list of players that I'm particularly interested in, and then it's going to calculate on its way through all the various things about the players, make the projections. So that code is now run. And coming back to this, what we can do is this is all the players. And again, if I just click that OPS thing, you can see that's just sorting all the players just to check it works, and there's Otani at the top. But what I want to do now is concentrate on the players that are flagged. So over here, on this column here, it says flagged for all the players that were on that flagged.txt. So in this case, it's all the players in the Rule 5 draft. It could have been any list of players, but this is the Rule 5 draft players. If I just type flag in here, it now will give me all the players that are in the Rule 5 draft. Now, if I just double click on this best, what you're going to get is, well, first thing you're going to get is a limitation of the projection approach, which is there are more players than one that are called Jose Ramirez in this game. You've not got a player in the Rule 5 draft with a 5 wins above replacement projection. I'll just show you what I mean. So there's loads of players called Jose Ramirez, including one of the ones in the Rule 5 draft. So that's a little bit of a confusing factor. Ignore the first two. There's not players of that quality in the Rule 5 draft. But the third player that comes up on this list with a projection of 2.3 current and then 3.9 potential is here Noah Miller. And Noah Miller is probably in the Rule 5 draft. Let's go and have a look. Okay, so here's all the players in the draft. And sure enough, here's Miller. And he's got 40 overall, 50 potential. So those are his overall ratings. But we can see from the projection that our scout thinks that Noah Miller is a pretty good player. And sure enough, if you look at this, I'm still getting a bit used to Out of the Park 26. I've upgraded from Out of the Park 24, so this is a little bit different, but I think you can see that this is a good player. And in particular, he's very good defensively, which is one of the things the projection system likes very much. Now, you can split out how much of his WAR projection is from defensive characteristics quite easily by just looking at his designated hitter rating. And you can see that his designated hitter rating is negative. So he would be worse than replacement level designated hitter, which is consistent with his OPS plus prediction, which is 93, so below league average of 100. But you can see the potential is 105. So what this is basically saying is you've got a player that is capable of being in a major league team as a starter today through their defensive capabilities mainly, but is just about good enough to be in the batting order, and then has the potential to be a league average or maybe slightly plus member of the batting order. So for a Rule 5 pick, that's actually quite interesting. In fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to draft Miller here and then run on to the next round of this draft. All right, now we're back on the clock, and it's the second round of the Rule 5 draft. And I've just sorted it for pitchers only, because another thing I like to do in the Rule 5 draft is try and nab some relief pitching. And so I've just gone here and again typed in flag on the pitchers part of this, and then I've just sorted it by relief pitching, wins above replacement projection. Now these numbers look a bit low to me, 0.3, 0.2. Compared to out of the park 24, I was getting higher numbers than this. So I'm not sure that these are totally like for like as wins above replacement projections, but as a measure of quality, I think they're still useful. And top of the list is Drew Summers here, 25, Detroit. And if you look in game, here is Drew Summers. And this does look like the kind of reliever that I like. He's got the ground ball tendency, which I'm looking for. 2 pitches, good movement. I don't know if this is the right kind of pitcher for out of the park 26, because it's probably too soon to know. But certainly in previous versions of the game, this is a guy that would be pretty good. And even though he's only A+, at the level he's pitched at, I think for me, I have no problem putting this guy into our major league bullpen like this. I think he'd be just fine. So Summers is an example of the kind of player I would nab in a Rule 5 draft and will. Okay, now into the third round of the Rule 5 draft. And I'd also like to see if I can nab this guy, Garrett McDaniels. Now, I'm struggling to find Garrett McDaniels as I go down here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put in here, Garrett McDaniels, paste the name in, and then go. And it'll at least tell me the rating, which apparently is 45. Scroll down until I find McDaniels here. There he is, Garrett McDaniels. So I had to scroll all the way down to here to find McDaniels. But the game's not making McDaniels that easy to find, but the projection system's made him much easier to find. Has been a AAA pitcher and has had a small number of major league outings in the previous season. 26 years old, left-handed. Exactly the kind of player this projection system tends to find for me. Same in the previous version of the game. Probably fine, might not set the world on fire, but is a good Rule 5 pick. All right, so how does this scoring system work? Here's a diagram just setting out what it's doing. So the game itself, Out of the Park 26, is providing data in the form of files called CSV files. And I'll come on to how you do that in a minute. But they basically are providing your scout's opinion on each and all of the players in the game. So that comes into the projection system. I call the projection system Pistachio, by the way. So if you download the files, you'll see Pistachio is the file name. You then need scoring logic. So that takes the data and actually tells you how to calculate the answer. And for hitters and pitchers, I'm using different scoring logic. It's based on earlier versions of Out of the Park. So as time goes by, it may be that this scoring logic needs to be a little bit refined, but it works pretty well, I think, based on what I've used so far. It's based on a 1 to 250 rating scale, for example, and the scout's opinion is only on the 20 to 80 scale that comes out of the Park 26, where it gives 20 to 80, but then with some outliers. So there's some 85s, 90, 95s in there. Anyway, the code deals with all of that and just comes up with a score. And just to big up the creators of that scoring logic, there's on the hitter side a system called MOPS, by a YouTube guy called Sergeant Mushroom, who is super interesting when it comes to OOTP content, has been through the years. This is the MOP system on the screen here, and I'll put this link in the description. You can basically go in and fill in a player and it will give you the answer. You've got all the rate stats, and then it builds up to wins above replacement projections. And then on the pitcher side, I use some logic from a guy on the OOTP forums called Donkey Kong from several seasons ago of OOTP, I think sort of 4 or 5 real life years ago, but it still works pretty well. And then I used a little bit of the logic in OOTP Calculator, which is this website here. Again, a brilliant website. And I think what I was doing here was trying to use this to calculate from a FIP projection to a wins above replacement projection, if memory serves. I did it a couple of real life years ago, so I can't remember exactly how I did that. But if you look in the code of the game, if you're more sort of familiar with coding, you can go through and you can see what it does. So, for example, this is the start of the logic for the MOPS projection system. It starts off with the batter's I rating, and then it applies different coefficients depending on whether the I rating is above or below 100 on a score of 1 to 250. If you go up here, this is the mapping of the 20 to 100 scale to the 1 to 250 scale. So you can just see how that works. And then once it's got a walk percentage, that's sort of one building block. Then down here it calculates a strikeout percentage, and so on and so on. It gradually builds up from the ratings to the projection. So you can kind of see all that in here. It does it for hitters, it does it for pitchers, it does it off current, it does it off potential. All right, so how do you actually get this thing working on your own computer if you wanted to use it? So you'll find in the description a zip file, and it's got these 3 files in it called Pistachio 26 IPYMB. That's an example of what's called a Jupyter notebook. Come back to talk about that in a minute. Flagged.txt, which is an empty text file, and then club_lookup.csv. So there's 3 files. What you need to do is just create a folder somewhere on your computer, just so you know where it is. I call mine Pistachio, yours can be called whatever, and then put these 3 into it. So that's a kind of project folder, if you like, where the code's going to reside. That's one thing. Then you need to have an output folder, again, just a blank folder. So I'm going to change that to be more accurate. That's where the reports are going to go that are created by the system. So that's an output folder. Again, just have that somewhere. I call mine reports. Then you need to figure out where the inputs are going to come from the game. So let's now go into the game and figure out how to do that part. Okay, so I'm in the game. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Game Settings. So I'm going to go to Database here, and then I'm going to go Database Tools, and the first thing I'm going to do is Configure Data Export to CSV. So this needs to look just like this. So you need to tick these things on the left, insert column names, insert single quotes, not any of these, and then additional complete scouted ratings. That's important because that's the one that's going to get you what your scout says. And on the right hand side here, tick these ones so you can see coaches, tick precisely these ones exactly as this. Pause this video and just copy this, player career, and so on, and I'll just go down just those ones. So I'll just do that a little bit more slowly so you can see it. Just basically tick the same ones that I've got and then click save. So now it will know, the game will know what it needs to spit out when you ask it to. Then as for where to go, if you can go back on Database Tools and go here, Open Data Import Export folder. And if you do that, it's going to give you a folder, and here CSV, and if you click on it, now mine's already got stuff in it, yours probably won't. And in fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete mine. So it's an empty folder. Okay, so this is now going to be an empty folder. Now what I'm going to do is go back here and say, right, okay, I want you to export the data. So tell that folder what it needs to know about the players in my game. So I'm going to click this. And if I just bring that folder back on the screen, what we should find is that across the top here in the game, it's this lines thing. Basically, this is the generation coming on from the game. It takes a few seconds. And you can see on the left-hand side here, these CSV files are coming into the folder, coming out of the game and coming into the folder, which is what we want. I'll leave it to see in real time so you can kind of see how long it takes. It takes, 10 seconds or something to come through. And now it's almost done. Now, once it's done that, the game has now told this folder what it needs to know about players. Done. Right, now we need to go into the code. So the code, this is the code, and I've got it open in something called VS Code, which is a code editing software. And I've got open what's called a Jupyter Notebook. Now, if the 2 things I've just said to you there, VS Code and Jupyter Notebook, are not things you're familiar with, then shout at me in the comments and I'll make another video explaining how you get to this bit. But basically, you need to be open what's called a Jupyter Notebook. VS Code's a good way to do that with the Jupyter Notebook extension. Or an even simpler way is to download something called Anaconda, which is a thing that you can use to open Jupyter Notebooks as well. Like I say, shout in the comments if that bit needs more explanation. But basically, I've got open here the file pistachio_2026, which is downloadable in the description, and this is the code. Now, there are some points that you need to configure here. So come back to this picture. We've got the input folder, we've got the folder that this code is in, and then the output folder. And you basically just need to tell the code where those 3 places are. So first thing is specify the folder here where the game saves the CSV files. So in this case, that's this one over here. And it's got the CSV files that have come in from the game. And it's this path down here, which I've included in here. So that's the first thing. Okay, second thing is then where is the export? Specify the folders in which to save the outputs. That's going to be this one. And mine, I've got this folder name here, pistachio/reports. Now what I'm going to do, that is this one here, but what I'm going to do is I'm now going to run the code to create these. I'm going to delete these as well. So that gets rid of it. At the minute, that's a blank folder, but at the minute, it's going to have the answers in it. Then tell it where this Jupyter Notebook file, IPYMB, is short for some reason for Jupyter Notebook. The text file and the CSV file, they're all in here. Okay, that's where it is. So now the code knows where everything is, that it needs to look for data, calculate something, and export. It's got that little flow figured out. We now need to tell it 3 more things, which is down here. The first thing is we need to tell it the ID for our sporting director, or our director of scouting director, not sporting director. What I need to do for that is just open this CSV file called coaches. Now I'm in the game to just see what the guy's scouting director, Mazeliak, which is an interesting hire for the Chicago Cubs if that was in real life. But anyway, here we are. All right, so if I just type in here Mazeliak, can't type Mazeliak. Okay, 407. So this at the top here is coach ID, and it's 407. Back into the code. There you go, 407. Next one is to identify the team that I'm managing. And the reason why it does that is because the exports, because there's so many players, the exports cut off the players who are wins above replacement are less than 0. But if you don't want that for your team and you want to see all your rookies, and you probably do, then you just need to go into this club lookup thing here, and it's got all the team names. And in mine, CHC is Chicago Cubs. So I just simply take CHC and type it in here. And then this one at the bottom, if you want to do the same as me and just look at the ground ball pitches, you don't want to touch this one. This one is the minimum ground ball percentage for pitches. It cuts off from the exports all the pitches where they are a greater tendency in this to fly ball, which basically means a lower number than this. If you want to see all the pitches, change this 59 to 0. If you want to just have the ground ball pitches, then 59. And if you want to do something in the middle, then go for it. Neutral, I don't know exactly what neutral would be, 50 or 40. I don't know exactly what it is. Lower this setting if you want to see more pitches in a general direction of 5-ball pitches. If you just want to see ground ball and extreme ground ball pitches like me, leave this at 59. Whatever you've done on all of this, save it. That's all you need to do. That's the entirety of it. You don't need to touch any of the other code. These are just the sort of configuration steps in this cell near the top. Now, if you want to flag specific players like I've done with my Rule 5 draft, then you can put them in here. I don't particularly want to on this go around, so I'm going to delete that and save that. So that's that. And then that's it. So the code's ready to go. So just to come back to this, at the moment we've got data in that's come out of the game that's in a folder, but we don't have any reports yet because we haven't run the code yet. So what I'm going to do now is just click run all, and then that's going to start running, and we should find in a minute that this will now populate with reports, and it'll be 2 HTML files, one for pitchers, one for batters, and then also a CSV file with the same stuff, but just in the format CSV. And the appeal of the CSV format is you can open it in Excel if you want to do filtering. This has now come up. So if we click on batter here, then we're going to get the hitters. There we go. And if we click on the pitchers, we're going to get the pitchers. All right, I think I'm going to end the video there. This is the first time I've put something on my YouTube channel about Out of the Park Baseball. It's a really good game. I really like it. And I'm really looking forward to the 2026 save I do with this setup. If this is the first time you've clicked on my channel and you've not seen any of my stuff before, I do a lot of stuff that's a bit like this for the game Football Manager. And in fact, the player scoring system I built for Football Manager has ended up becoming quite popular and has become a web app and has got several thousand users. So that's pretty cool. Check that out if you've not seen that before. The whole idea of doing things like this for me is just to make this game more immersive. It is for me. It may be of interest to others, and if it is, then great. And let me know any feedback in the comments. Thanks very much.